Why do we put our money in a bank? What's the deal with banks? Let's talk about banks today, get a basic understanding of them. The reason you put your money in the bank is not because you think it's going to be safe in there and no one's going to rob or steal it. The reason you put your money in a bank is because of interest. What is interest? It's the amount your money grows over time. Some of you may already know this. If you put your money in the bank, it turns into more money. Wow, is it magic? It's not magic. It's interest. The bank promises you interest. They say that if you give us your money over time, we will give you more money for allowing us to hold your money. Well, where do they get that extra money? Well, they ask someone else for that extra money. Let's look. Let me give you an example of how it specifically works. So you are the depositor. You put your money in the bank because of interest. Interest is the amount of money, the amount your money grows over time. So if you get 7% interest, you put in $100 at the end of the year, you will have $107. Magically, you get $7 more. Well, where did that magic $7 come from? Well, let's talk about where it came from. And we'll explain it here. So you deposit $1,000 into the bank and they promise you 3% interest. The reason you are putting your money in the bank, the reason you are giving your money to the bank, I mean, basically, would you rather hold your money or give it to them? You're like, I don't want to give my money to someone else. You give your money to someone else, and that someone else is the bank, is because the bank promises you more money. If you allow the bank to borrow your money, they will give you more money in return. Think of it this way. If you ever let someone borrow money, you say, I'll let you borrow $100, but you need to give me $105 back in return. It's basically you're charging them a fee to borrow your money, and eventually they may give you money back, and so you made money off of it. Well, that's the same thing. That person is basically a bank. I know it's kind of weird to wrap your mind around, but you are loaning them money, and they're doing whatever with it, and eventually they pay you back. Same thing with a bank. When you give money to the bank, you're loaning your money to the bank, and they can do whatever they want with it as long as they eventually pay you your money back when you ask, along with interest. In the end, you'll get $1,030. That $30 came out of nowhere. You didn't even have to do anything to earn that $30. It was just interest. Now, where did they get that money? Set a timer for 13 minutes. Where did they get that money? They got that money from a borrower.
Okay, 13 minutes and counting.
Good. I thought she was going to interrupt me again. Here's where that magic $30 came from. It didn't come out thin air. They did the same thing that you did. You loaned your money to the bank for 3%, but you're kind of a sucker in this situation because they are going to take your money and they're going to loan your money to this guy and they're going to get 6%. Now, banks have the ability to do this because they're a bank and people know to come to them, and that's where you can go to get money. People don't know that you're the person to go to get money, but they know the bank is the place to go to get money. The bank has a bunch of money. The bank kind of controls how this whole thing goes, and so the bank realizes, look, I'll borrow money from you. I'll give you 3% back, and then they loan your money out at 6%, and this guy agrees because he needs the money. Basically, the bank is just a middleman between you and this guy. I mean, it would be a lot more easy if you just loaned your money to him. You guys could get lower interest and kind of work it out between each other. But look, you've got a job to do. You've got kids to feed. You can't spend all day loaning out money. And you don't want to just loan money to anyone. You understand your friends. You're like, all right, I know this guy. He's a good guy. I can loan him money. You know, hey, that guy's a bad guy. I'm never loaning him money. But what about everybody else? Do you have the time to spend to look over everybody in your community and decide, oh, who should I loan money to? You don't have the time or the expertise to decide who should you loan money to, who are the best suited to pay you back. That's where the bank comes in. The bank's only job, they don't make cheeseburgers, they don't make cars, they don't have a job, they don't have any other job other than figuring out who is the best person to borrow money. They review paperwork, they look at income, they look at everything about a person, they decide, okay, yep, credit, income, all right, look at all this, and they decide this is a good fit, or this is the right interest rate for that specific person. You can't really do that. That's what the bank does. They review information to make sure that they give out the best loans, because if they give out the best loans, they get money in return, and then they give that money back to you in return. So in this scenario, you loaned $1,000, and they are supposed to pay you $1,030. Well, how do they do that? Because they've only got $1,000. Well, they take your $1,000, they loan it to the borrower. Over time, eventually, he pays back his loan at a rate of 6%. So not only does he pay back $1,000, but he will have to pay the 6%, which is $60 on top of it. So the bank gets $1,060. The bank could then take their $1,060, pay you back, and they have a $30 profit. They gave you your $1,030. They made $30. Some people say they made $30 doing nothing. All they did was take money from the depositor and give the money to a borrower. They took it from the depositor. They gave it to the borrower. They didn't even do anything. Why do we even have banks? The reason we have banks is because it looks easy when it's easy, but when it all fails, you realize, yeah, we probably need a bank, because the bank is best suited to decide who is the best borrower. They pick people that they know will pay back, because if it doesn't get paid back, if he doesn't pay back his $1,000 with 6%, we got some big problems. Big problems. They make it look easy. When they make it look easy, it's because they're doing a really good job at loaning the money out. When this thing all goes wrong, then you realize, okay, yeah, we do need banks. We need banks to do a good job. Let's think about that. So option number one for a bank is to only lend money to people they know will pay back. And typically that's safe, and that's what we want them to do. But the opportunity cost, the trade-off, remember, going back to these economic terms, what do they give up when they make this choice? If they only make the safe play, then they can't make a lot of money, because they're very limited in the amount of loans that they can make. If they only lend money to the people that make enough money and have enough assets, then they're very limited in who they can loan money to. And that means they can only make so many loans. And in this situation, right, there's only a couple people they can loan to. They're only making like a little bit of profit. But if they can make more loans, they can make more money. The problem with that, option two, is, hey, let's loan to more people. Let's take some risks. Let's make a bunch of money. What's the opportunity cost here? What are they giving up when they make this choice? What is the trade-off? And what they're giving up is safety. Because if they make a bunch of loans, like, all right, wait, the more loans we make, the more people paying us back, the more they pay us back with interest, the more money we make, we get rich. The problem is, if you start making more loans, you're probably lending to people that may not be able to pay those loans back. And if they fail to pay that money back, it's gone. You're not going to get it. You got some real problems. Let's play that scenario out, and let's play it out on a grander scheme. Let's look at the positive first, right? So it's not just a bank and two people, okay? Now that is the micro. Let's blow it up and look at it in a bigger picture. So we have thousands of people in your town and thousands of borrowers, and the thousands of people Thousand people put $10,000 in the bank each, and $20,000 worth of loans are going out. $20,000 car, right? So imagine just 1,000 people are buying $20,000 cars. They don't have $20,000. How do they pay for that car? They borrow that money from the bank to buy that car. So imagine 1,000 people just bought a car. So here's how it works. 1,000 depositors put their money in at 2% interest. $10,000 at 2% interest. That's 20. What? So they put their money in here. They loan the money out here. And then it comes back and the bank has $20 million. Just blowing it up to give you an idea of how big this stuff can work. If you want to do the math to calculate all these different things, 1,000 times 10,000, 20,000 times 10,000. So you got to pay back these guys. And once the bank pays back those guys, it's made $10 million in profit. I'm not going to spend too much time going into the math. But if you wanted, you just take the 10,000 and you multiply it by 1,000. And that's going to give you the number. And then you loan that money out. When they pay it back at a 10% interest, I'll spare you the... Now, the question I really want to talk about, so you get the idea of a bank, right? It's pretty simple. You loan money to the bank then use that money to loan out to people. As long as everybody's paying back their loans, everything is good to go. That's great. That's awesome. That's sweet. That's awesome. Party on. What happens when people don't pay back their loans? That's where we run into the problem that makes me scratch my head and put my hand on my face right there. So the 2008 economic crisis is a result of this. So these people lost their jobs. These people did not have the ability to pay back their loans. And if they can't pay back that money, then the bank no longer has that $20 million. It's gone. Never. Look, they take money from him, the bank, and then they loan it out. Now, these people can't pay back their loan. It's gone. You're not getting anything in return. And so if they can't pay back, then the bank can't pay back here. And that goes. And so the bank has nothing. And it's worse than nothing, right? Before, when everything was good, the bank not only got its money back that it loaned out, but it earned $10 million in profit. That's plus $10 million is what it had before. Now, it's worse than zero. Well, they just didn't get their money back. Wrong. They didn't get their money back from here. But guess what? The bank still owes these guys, right? The bank borrowed from them. So the bank is in worse shape than 10. The bank's actually negative $10 million in the hole. They're underwater. So the bank's broke. Everybody's broke. Now imagine an economy or a market where no one has money. If you don't have money, you can't buy goods. If you can't buy goods, they will not make goods, and the economy or that market collapses. If you're just thinking of a small Walmart, if everyone in town goes to a specific grocery store, and if no one in that town has money, then what will happen to that grocery store? It will go out of business. That's in a small town. Now take that idea and imagine on a state level. Imagine the entire country is dealing with an issue where we're all losing our money. So then all the businesses that used to sell us stuff, they can't sell you things anymore because you don't have any money. And so they shut down, and people lose jobs. And when people lose jobs, there's even less money, and the whole thing falls apart. Banks loan money to new businesses. You want to start a new business, you're going to get that money from a bank. New businesses create new jobs. And if you kill the bank, then you create this process of new businesses and new jobs. And when people don't pay their loan back, it kills the bank. So in this situation, like, oh man, we killed these guys, maybe they deserved it. And the bank went down, and maybe the bank deserved it too because it made bad loans. But these guys are completely innocent. They put their money in the bank because it's a safe thing to do. It's the responsible thing to do, and they get torn down in the process. But it's worse than that when the banks go under. It's not just the people that deposited, because now when the banks go down, new jobs and new businesses are not created, and so the economy suffers even more. The whole system, the whole economy goes down when the banks go down. Look, the banks loan money to create businesses, and the businesses then create jobs, and as those people get jobs, they get money, they spend more money, and that creates more jobs, that creates more businesses, and our economy grows. Our market grows as people buy more things. But if you take out the bank, then the funding that went into creating the market, all those little shops in the market that you're envisioning, the guy selling tomatoes, the guy selling video games, the guy selling sneakers, he can't start his business because he needed to borrow money to build the stand, to buy the shoes. Eventually, he's going to sell shoes. He's going to make money and pay off that loan. But he needs the shoes to start out with. He needs to be able to buy $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 worth of shoes to get started. If he wants to start his bookstore, he needs to buy an inventory. He needs books on the shelves. How do I get those books? I got to buy those books, but I don't have any money. I borrow money from the bank. I buy the books. When I sell the books, then I pay the bank back. That's how the business gets started. Oh, by the way, I also need to borrow some money to hire employees. But as the business gets growing, I pay it back, and everything goes. But you need a bank. If you don't have the bank to start these businesses, they don't exist, and they don't start jobs with them. So who's to blame? Who do you want to blame in this situation where people don't pay their loans back? Do you pay the people that didn't pay their loans back? I mean, yeah, that started the process of destroying the system. When they don't pay the loan back, the bank goes under. When the bank goes under, it takes everybody with them. It takes away the businesses. It takes away the people that deposited. The whole system collapses. It's a chain reaction. It's dominoes, one after one after one. And you could say, well, it's the borrower's fault because they're the one that didn't pay their loan back. But if you really want to rewind it, you could blame them. But you could also blame, well, before the borrower defaulted or before the borrower didn't pay his loan back, he was given a loan in the first place that he didn't deserve. Maybe we should blame the bank for giving out a loan that should have never happened, right? We go back to the beginning. Should a bank be making safe options where it doesn't make very many loans? Or does a bank make risky loans because they can make a lot of money? Did the bank accurately study this man? Did they look at his income? Did they look at his assets? Did they look at his credit history and decide, oh yeah, he's safe with the money? Or did they know that this guy can't pay it back, but they made the loan anyway? A lot of times what the bank would do is they give this guy the bad loan, and then they sell that bad loan to someone else so they don't have to worry about it anymore. They run away. They promise someone else, like, oh no, it's a good loan, don't worry about it, he'll pay you back. He won't pay that back. So maybe you blame the banks. Who did the government side with in the situation in 2008 and still what we have today? Do you blame the people that failed to pay the loan back that would slowly suck the economy down? Or do you blame the banks that made bad loans? The government sides with the banks. The government said, we'll help the banks out. And the people that were unable to pay their loans back, the people that live in the economy too, who suffered from the economy going completely downhill. No, the government steps in and protects and saves the bank, even though we know that the banks made bad loans. Now, in some cases, the government made the banks make bad loans. I mean, you go into the details, folks. This is very broad. This is very generalized. If you go into the details, there's a lot more going on because if you really want to know what happened, there's so many different layers and levels to economic recessions, but the easy way, these people should have just not taken out those loans, those fools, or you should say, well, it's the banks that made bad loans. Yeah, well, also the government got involved, and the government forced the banks to make those bad loans. Now, a lot of people talk about that, but one of the reasons why the banks were making these bad loans was because the government was making them do it. So when we look in the future and find out, well, why did the government bail out the banks? When he lost everything and the banks lost everything, why didn't the government help him out? Why did the government choose the banks? Because the government made these guys make these loans. The government ordered them to give loans that the government knew wouldn't get paid back, that the banks knew wouldn't get paid back. They created this problem, and they knew eventually, as more and more and more and more people didn't pay back the loans that they knew weren't going to get paid back, it was going to destroy the entire economy. They all knew this was going on. They all knew that this was a problem, and no one wanted to deal with it. All right, so that's basically how banks work.